Good Shabbos. Well, Penuel the place Penuel is located on the east side of the Jordan River, just above the Yabok River. It's mentioned in both the book of Judges and in the first book of Kings. In the book of Chronicles, two individuals bear the name Penuel. The origin of the name is actually to be found in this week's Parashah, Vayishlach, in which we read about the episode in which Jacob wrestled with the angel. And after prevailing, Jacob named the place where the battle occurred. And this is what the Torah says. Jacob named the place Peniel, saying, I have seen the divine face to face, and my soul has withstood it. And the sun shone upon him as he left Penuel. The straightforward explanation for this naming is that Jacob recognized that in this transformational experience that he had just had, he had touched a higher reality of self and of connection to God, a much deeper spiritual self, and one that had enabled him to prevail over the negative forces represented by Esau. And that was symbolized, of course, in the name change from Jacob to Israel. And he commemorated this awesome event as if he had seen God face to face by giving the place where it occurred a name that reflected what he had experienced. But there's something else here as well. A careful reading of the verse shows a subtle transition in the name from the beginning of the verse to the end. The verse starts by saying Jacob named the place Peniel, and the verse ends by saying, and the sun shone upon him as he left Penuel. So very mysteriously, in a single verse, the name changes from Peniel to Penuel. And in fact, the two words have a very different meaning. Peniel translates as Pani, my face, Pani, my face, or the face of, and El, of course, translates as God. Penuel translates as Panu, which means space or vacancy. And once again, Kale translates as God. So Peniel therefore translates as my face has seen God, or more colloquially, I've seen God face to face. Penuel translates as there is an empty space for God. These are not only radically different meanings, but they're also seemingly contradictory. The first speaks of a deep intimacy, and the second gives us a sense of distance or of absence. One is inward facing, and the other is outward facing. But in truth, there's no contradiction, because the two names reflect the wholeness of Jacob's relationship with God following his epic struggle. Because in English, the word face means something superficial. It's the most outward expression of a human being. And it can sometimes belie what lies beneath the surface. So a person can smile outwardly, but be crying inwardly. A face-to-face conversation need not refer to an intimate conversation. In fact, there's a whole social media platform that's devoted to showing faces. And of course, it's called Facebook. And there's very little you can tell about the inner person from seeing the image that they choose to display on Facebook. In fact, with a little bit of help from Photoshop, you can show your face in whichever image you prefer. But in Hebrew, the word for face, panim, means both face, but it also means inside, panimiyut, inwardness. Because a true face is an integrated connection between the inside and the outside. What the sages refer to as toho kabaro, that the inside should be like the outside, and the outside should be like the inside. What you see is what you get. A smile has to reflect joy from within. A cry has to manifest a sincere feeling from within. There's no duplicity. That's the mark of a genuine human being. So in the subtle change of name, the Torah is teaching that in a Jew's life, there can be no duality. Our inner, Peniel, and our outer, Penuel, should be one and the same. Our innermost relationship with the divine needs to be completely and fully consistent with our outer experiences. The inner space, the face-to-face, the deep face-to-face, and the outer space that we occupy in the world have to be one and the same. And by the way, the same applies to human relationships. A Hasidic story relates that a rabbi once asked his pupils how one determines when the night has ended and the day has begun. And this is important for halachic reasons because, for example, determining the time when you can first recite the Shema in the morning. So one student said, it's when you can distinguish a dog from a sheep. And another one said, it's when it's light enough to tell the difference between a date tree and a fig tree. No, said the Rebbe. It's when you look into the face of a stranger and you can see your sister or brother. Until then, night is still with us. At a simple level, he was saying that the moment that dawn arrives is when there's enough light to recognize the familiar features of somebody who you know well, such as a sister or brother. But he meant something much deeper as well. When we first look at a stranger's face, we see panu, the yawning space that highlights and emphasizes the differences between us. But when you look more deeply, you see pani. You see the reflection of my face in the other. We understand that the person that we're looking at is a sister or a brother. At some deep human level, we are the same, notwithstanding our differences. We're all children of one God, who in his wisdom created a diverse and multifaceted universe. And when we understand the difference between pani and panu, we learn to respect the other. Shabbat Shalom.